Alright, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be making a video about my birth story because apparently I'm a mom now of a 7.5-month-old baby who's sleeping right here next to me. We'll see how long I can make this video for before he wakes up, so he might be in the video toward then. My birth story is a little bit different in the fact that it technically would be considered a failed home birth. When I was pregnant, I watched so many videos on YouTube of positive birth stories, positive home water births. I had it in my head like I wanted to just stick with the positive stories. So if you don't want to have like a negative story, maybe don't watch this. But I am going to try my very, very best to twist it around to be something that's positive, because I think you can find the positive in anything if you're willing to look at it. So I'm not going to sit here and it's not going to be a sob story. It's going to be something that I feel like is productive. What I want this video to be primarily is, if I was watching this video when I was still pregnant, what could I take away from this video? So this is for me, past version of myself. That's what this video is for. And anyone who's in that same position. Because I feel like if I would have known about these things, I probably might have chosen a different scenario. And not to say that the way it went down wasn't the way it should have gone down, because everything happens for a reason. And so that I'm going to go over that as well. But I want to start off by saying that, like, when I got pregnant, me and my husband were freaking building out our van. It was a high top van. We were going to be building it out. We went per diem at work. We're going to be traveling. And that completely came to a halt because I found out that I was pregnant like 2 months into the van build. So there's that. And so we had to kind of decide what we were going to do. So Dan was trying to find another job because per diem wasn't going to cut it, and I wasn't going to be working for a while. So we ended up taking a job in Waco, Texas, and we moved from Arizona to Texas while I was in my I was in my second trimester at that point. So there were some stresses that were afoot that were kind of out of my hands, but I tried my best to eat pretty well, take really good vitamins and fish oils, and I did exercise, I did yoga, I even did the chiropractor. What else? I feel like I did so many freaking things because I was like, I'm gonna have a positive home birth story. So I did all that stuff, but there were some things that were out of my control that came up, like, we were moving and there was a lot of moving pieces. We ate out a lot, I could have probably chosen more mindful options, but I gained a lot of weight, I think, like, if I had to guess, I started at like maybe 140, 145, and I went up to 197 on the day I went into labor. I was 197 pounds. So that's a lot of freaking weight. That's a lot. So yeah, that was like part of the stress and the eating, you know what I mean? Because food those waffles with syrup and butter were really good. I feel like I really tried to manage as much as possible. And even with the, a lot of weight gain, I think I was pretty healthy. So as far as the birth goes, I wanted to find a midwife, and it was expensive, and we couldn't really afford to fork out like $5,000. So what we did was we had really good insurance through my husband's job, and we found a midwife that took our insurance. So we couldn't really be selective. That's the number one thing that I think probably went wrong, was that we can be selective. They weren't bad, but I didn't feel that connection, and I didn't feel that that personalization from them, like, as far as like I don't remember them ever asking me like details about what I wanted for my birth, how I wanted things to go. Maybe they expected me to give that information just to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it just didn't seem super personal. And there's a lot of people that love them and probably have had really good stories. I'm definitely not going to say any names because one story should not break a midwife. But for me, mine was just not that positive with them. And I think it's really important when you choose a birth team that it's somebody that you feel a connection with. It's your baby. Money can't be the first thing that you're thinking about. It has to be about, am I going to feel safe? You're in a very vulnerable state. So that's something that I think that is the number one thing. And so I went and I saw them toward the second and third trimester. I would go in and, you know, they would do checkups and stuff, and everything was going healthy. I was doing really well. My blood sugar and my blood pressure were all normal. Um, and yeah, everything was good. I would say that toward the end, they wanted to do the cervix checks, which is probably pretty routine. But for me, looking back, I wouldn't have done them. And the reason why is because what's the point? You know, you're going to go into labor when you go into labor. Why do you need to check it? Because there's a lot of women that are dilated like 4 centimeters for weeks before they go into labor. So it's really not an accurate determination of when you're going to be going into labor. So what's the point? And I don't think that there's any need to stick, you know, some fingers up there and check your cervix. So if going back, I wouldn't do that. And I would have maybe made that clear to the start, because they did a check at 37 weeks. I was about 1 centimeter dilated and 70% effaced, which doesn't really give you any information except you need a little bit more time because you got to get thinned out so your body can actually dilate in the cervix region. But besides that, you know, they did it that. I declined the second time. The third time was on 40, when I was 40 weeks on the dot. I went in for my last appointment. I wasn't in labor yet, and the midwife checked my cervix and said I was 1 centimeter dilated, 100% effaced. And she said that she thought it would still be a week before I would go into labor. And when she did the check, it was very aggressive and it hurt. And looking back, you know, talking to professionals in the field, nurses, that would be stripping your membrane. Oh, there's a little buddy up.
Part of the story. You were part of it. Yes.
So yeah, it was an aggressive check, so they call that a membrane sweep, and it helps stimulate labor. She did not ask me if she could do that. If she did, I probably would have said no. So right after that appointment, I actually went into early labor. I started getting consistent contractions, and I was in early labor for like 36 hours. Maybe a little bit less. It might have been more like around 24 hours. But things really started picking up after 24 hours, and I was getting consistent contractions. Like, they were like 4 minutes apart, and they were like a minute long. So the midwives came over at like 1 a.m. I'd already been in labor for like probably 36 hours. And she checked my cervix, and I was actually only 1 centimeter dilated and 100% effaced. So it's like, what the heck? Like, how could I be in labor that long without any progress? Like, it didn't make sense. But she actually said that I had scar tissue on my cervix, and so that was preventing me from dilating more. And she actually manually went in there and removed it, which she didn't ask me either, which obviously, like, I'd want that to happen because you need to remove it so you can dilate. So she removed it, and I guess I dilated to 4 centimeters, which is a positive thing. But the contractions, I guess, were pretty intense at that point because my body was trying to dilate properly, but it couldn't because of the scar tissue, and I have no idea how that even happened. I have no idea. After that, I was in the pool at home, and the midwives took a nap on the couch, and that's when the contractions got really intense, like super intense. Like, I was like moaning in the pool, and I was just like, just giving everything to just hang in there, you know. And I remember when they woke up from sleeping, it had been like 4 hours of just really intense contractions, and she checked me again, and I hadn't dilated anymore. And we were like, what the heck? My water hadn't broke. So she said that we needed to break my water to speed things up a little bit. So I was like really nervous about that, actually. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, what if something happens? What if they break the water, and, like, you know, sometimes babies can get the cord wrapped around their neck, you know. I've heard stories like that where the water breaks. So it's like, it to me, in my head, I was thinking, like, it's better to be in a medical place, a professional place where they have the...
What are you looking at? Is it the radio, you sweetheart?
Where they have, like, all that equipment, like, in case something goes wrong, you know. And I remember asking her, I was like, should we go to the hospital? And she said no. That was the other thing, is like, trust your gut. Don't just trust a midwife blindly, because it's your body and it's your experience, and you have your own intuition, and you should really honor that. So instead of asking, I probably would have said, let's go to the hospital, because there's a reason why things aren't going smoothly. And to me, it's like, I want to do a home natural birth. But yeah, so I would have definitely wanted to go to the hospital, because to me, a water home birth natural is something that you do when it flows, and there's no hiccups, because that's the way it should go. It should be a spontaneous birth where you're not having any difficulty. Huh. So she, oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. Are you curious about the teeth? Story, and I'm gonna let you help, because you were there. You were there for this. So after she broke my water, everything was okay. But I had dilated, she said, to 6 centimeters. So that was promising. And I remember going into the pool after that, and maybe like, I don't know, a couple hours later, I had the urge to push. So things really did speed up really well after that, and it was intense. They were very intense contractions, which, maybe transition phase, that's what it was. It was super intense. I started getting the urge to push. It was around 8:30 in the morning, and I pushed in the pool for probably a few hours, and nothing happened. She had me in all sorts of positions, and I think she knew that when they broke the water, this little dude right here kind of fell to the side, because he was in a normal, head down right here, but he had fell down to the side here, so it wasn't able to be a spontaneous birth. So she had me going in all sorts of positions, trying to get him to kind of go in the right direction, but it didn't work. So they wanted me to go to the bed, and I remember telling her that I couldn't do it anymore. And so she was like, okay, we're going to go to the bed, and we're going to get this baby out of here. So we went to the bed, and my mom and my husband were holding my legs in the air for like hours, and I was pushing, giving it my all. She was reaching, in there trying to lodge him out, and she kept saying, he's almost there, he's coming out soon. And so I was giving it my all every time, because I didn't want to be doing this anymore, obviously. And it was crazy. And like, he didn't come out, and I think it probably on the 6 or 7 hour mark, she said that we need to go to the birthing center. The IV fluids that they brought were gone. I was extremely dehydrated. She said that we should go to the birthing center. And my mom said, no, we're going to the hospital. And I'm thankful for that, because I was in a very vulnerable state. I really didn't know what was going on. I remember every single thing. I remember how intense it was. But I just didn't really have any energy to really think about where we were going, what we were doing. So we ended up driving to the hospital. I was 10 centimeters dilated, having pushing contractions in the car, laying like to the side. Freaking like, my husband's driving, my mom's in the passenger seat. Bodhi's not out yet. Where is Bodhi? Where is he? And so we get to the hospital, and they're asking me all these questions, and I'm like, dude, like, I'm 10 centimeters dilated. Like, can we hold the questions off for a while? But I mean, when I got there, I was so depleted, and I was in so much pain from like pushing for 7 hours. I was just like, man, give me the medication, like, give me an epidural, man, like. And then the doctor came in, and she said, hey, like, we're either going to need to do a vacuum or a C-section, because this baby's not going to come out spontaneously because of the way he's positioned. He's sunny side up to the side. There's just no way. There's no way. You weren't coming. And here, let's give you a little toy, and then mommy will hold you, and we'll do some fun stuff. But for now, just play with your little toy. The vacuum probably wasn't going to be a big deal, but I was thinking, like, man, like, I don't know, to suck a baby out, like, what's that going to do to him? What's it going to do to me? Yeah, C-section's pretty intense, but I was just like, man, like, no, let's do a C-section. I want him to come out as healthy as possible. My blood pressure was really high. They were trying to manage that, so I was just like, yeah, let's do a C-section. So they took me down, they did a C-section, and I got to see my baby for the first time. Remember, they held him up, and he was just like so precious. So it didn't end up going the way I had hoped. And I didn't really, I heard back from the midwives once. They texted me and asked me if everything was okay, and then the other midwife called the hospital to ask if everything was okay. My husband explained what happened, and so we didn't really hear from them after that at all, which was really strange. But maybe it was because they don't really know how to deal with situations like that. Maybe they felt guilty. Maybe they didn't want me to like press like charges or anything, which I wouldn't. You know, I feel like maybe at the end of the day, that's the way he wanted to come out. Maybe that was the safest. Even if it was spontaneous and it came out, maybe it wouldn't have been enough room. He had a huge noggin, man. Like, I don't know. Everything happens for a reason. And I think, you know, it was easy to get resentful and to feel animosity for a little while there. But I think more than anything, just bringing it back to the fact that, like, everything happens for a reason. And, you know, you don't really know. Also having compassion, because, you know, that there's going to be negative stories that they're going to have, you know. It's like they can't just like do everything, you know. And it wasn't her fault that he fell, but like maybe she could have, you know, stepped it up a little bit sooner to ask us like what we wanted to do instead of just taking the lead, you know, having ego involved, you know. And she was pregnant herself, so it's like, you know, having compassion for that scenario. And maybe it taught her something too, that, you know, it's important to check in with people and ask them what they want to do instead of just taking the lead and, you know, assuming, because you could really cause some damage. You know, what if you know, something happened to him, you know, to have that like weigh on your shoulder for your whole life could be really, really traumatic. So it's important to check in with the person, you know, that you're delivering the baby with. But I was just really thankful that he was healthy and I was healthy. And yeah, I think just having compassion and realizing that everything happens for a reason is really, at the end of the day, the saving grace on that one, you know. And realizing that, you know, like the natural home birth would have been so cool, because I would have gotten to hold my baby right afterwards, and I would have been drug free, and I would have been, you know. But even getting an epidural, getting the drugs, and, you know, not getting to hold him right away, like, it didn't take away from the fact that, like, when I did hold my baby, I did feel, like, so much immense love and gratitude for him. Like, I was just, like, swimming in a sea of love. It was incredible. Like, not that I didn't, like, I did experience a hard, you know, postpartum, you know, just with how I felt in recovery, but besides that, like, just the love was, like, really fueling me through with this little guy. So yeah, that's my birth story, and definitely didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, but I would say, like, looking back, always trust your intuition. If you feel like you need to go to the hospital, you should. If you're having a spontaneous birth and there's not a lot of issues going on, then, you know, that's a different story. But with mine, it's like, you know, when there are a lot of hiccups like that, it's, you know, important to trust your intuition, and think about those things beforehand. Because I did think a lot about different things, but that you can't. There's some things that you just don't anticipate. You can't. You know, I didn't realize that they're going to have to break my water. He was going to fall into a position that wouldn't have been possible. So, yeah, that's my birth story. And I'm excited to make other videos. I'm going to try to post pretty regularly.